Still got snow on the ground, as you can see, and it's time to start some seeds. So we're going to be starting some seeds, but if you don't do this, some of these seeds just will not germinate until they get this requirement met. You can see the garlic is poking out here, so that's a good sign. But we're going to actually use some of this snow to our advantage to meet the requirements of these seeds. What I'm starting today is actually, I'm going to start some flowers, and we need to do some cold stratification to them. But where I am in coastal North Carolina, and just wait, you're going to hear something in a minute that you're going to be shocked by. We don't necessarily have the time to get there, so we need to manipulate a little bit to get this cold period requirement for these seeds. Now, for this conversation, zone absolutely matters. So remember that. And I am in zone 8B. So it doesn't really matter because for the past 4 nights we've gotten down to the temperatures of zone 8A. I'm not trying to crack that conversation open, so just hold your comments about all that stuff. But for flowers, it does matter because it's a perennial zone map. And so some of these can be perennials, some of them aren't. What I really focus on, truthfully, are seeds that self-sow. That's what I like, but in general, if you want something to be perennial, you do need to focus on your zone. So with that said, we've got our seeds here. Actually never ordered from this company before, but we'll get into in another video why I did. But we've got calendula, we've got yarrow, which I've grown before and I really like it. We got sweet alyssum, and we have 2 different types of straw flowers. Here's the situation. I've grown yarrow before, and I don't remember cold stratifying it, but when you buy the seeds, none of them said anything about cold stratification. So I sat down, I did my research, and you can see, like I wrote this little note on here, NL means needs light, does not need light. So some of these seeds don't even need to be buried at all. They just need to be laid on the surface and pressed down with your finger. Some of them do need to be buried. Some of them do need cold stratification and all that good stuff. So it was really confusing, and I just sat down and I took my time and I went through it. And what I want to do this year, because it's such a pain, is I think the sweet alyssum will come back, the yarrow will come back for sure, and the yarrow is the only one that we need to do cold stratification to, supposedly, so I'm going to go ahead and do it because that's the research told me. And I want to do as much as I can so I don't have to keep redoing it over and over. The calendula does not need any light, so it has to be buried, and all the other seeds need to be laid on top. Now we have other seeds that we're going to start in the future, but for these, it just doesn't really, this is what we have today. And I've had a lot of people ask about cold stratification. I did a YouTube live about it, which by the way, they should be coming back next week. I've just been really busy. So I'm gonna try next week to do a live. And we're going to be talking about, I think everybody wanted to hear about drip irrigation, so we're going to talk about that. But the cold stratification, I'm going to show you about it, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to manipulate it, and then what we're going to do with the other seeds. All right, so this is all the soil I can muster up because it was frozen, and my hands are killing me from squeezing and breaking up icy soil, but we've got it pre-wet. I'm actually going to go ahead and do it one more time. I can't use my hose right now, so we're just doing a little bit at a time with the watering can and just trying to pre-wet the soil. Just laying seeds on the surface, that's not something you really want to mess with because ultimately you could mess it up. You could wash the seed out, or you could actually bury it. So what we want to do is we want to make sure it's good and wet, the soil is, and then we put it in place, and then hopefully we won't have to do any watering until germination comes. And if we do, we're gonna have to be very careful about it because with the way that we water, and we're not mimicking rain like a light rain or anything, so we have to be very careful. On the whole subject of needing light, I can tell you this. I've tried to grow straw flowers now for 2 years, and I never realized that they needed light, so I've never had a plant germinate. So we're gonna try something different this year and see if we can get it to germinate. And also, just to let you know how stupid the world is, I had a company reach out to me. Something, you know, we get emails and stuff to review products, And I never want to review anything that's not going to benefit y'all in any type of way. And I had a company reach out about nipple pasties. So I just want you to know these nipple pasties work really good. Whatever, it's so stupid. All right, so a little bit about cold stratification. First of all, if typically speaking, from what I understand, what I've seen, and I've done it before successfully multiple times with different seeds, but it typically applies to perennial seeds. A lot of seeds, you know, that are annuals, they can lay on the ground all winter. And remember, this zones come into play here, so remember that. But they can lay in the ground all winter and then still germinate, but they don't require it for germination. So that's what we want to think about. So in cold stratification, what it means is it breaks the dormancy of the seed. So again, not all seeds need it. These are calendulas, and they do not need it, and they do not need light, where actually light will inhibit the growth. So there is that. Let's see here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start multiple trays of each in waves. But back to the cold stratification, my bad. So it breaks the dormancy of the seed. And the way you achieve cold stratification is simply by giving it a period of cold. And cold can mean many things, but typically it's below 40 degrees. So there's multiple ways to meet this requirement. And one of them right off the bat is just sow them early and leave them outside. Now in my area, for instance, this in the next 7 days, it's supposed to be 65 degrees one day. So are we and it's going to be in the in the 50s for 2 to 3 nights. So you can see that we're going to kind of have an issue with this cold stratification. So the way you can do it, one, at this time of year, if you're going to expect to get cool again, simply putting your plant out into the shade where it doesn't get any sun, you know, the soil, then that will keep it cool. This time of year, your nighttime temperatures should bring it down, as long as you don't have like a prolonged period of it. The 50-degree nights are kind of troublesome, but it's at the same time, it's not the end of the world. So we're gonna try and do that, but I'm also gonna do something else to meet it. And then the other option, which a lot of people use, I don't like to do this, but what you do is you take your seeds, put them in, you can put them in the soil, you can put them in a damp paper towel, and then you can put them in the refrigerator for a couple weeks really, and then get them going that way. So, you know, there's multiple ways to do it. I don't like that method, and typically speaking, the reason why is because I forget about the seeds and then they just go bad. So this way I can put them out here. They should live to go, you know, they go through. I will see them as I'm starting more seeds. This is a bad sign. When you open a seed packet and within the seed packet there's another seed packet, that's an issue. So we know that we've got dust. Let's see here. These are the yarrow seeds. Oh shit. I mean, oh no. It's literally dust. You can't even see it. So this is gonna be tricky and fun at the same time. So I just sprinkled them on the top of this seed tray and this seed cell, or this 6-pack and this 6-pack. Now the question becomes, why am I using 6-packs? The reason why is because I don't want to transplant these unless I absolutely have to. So I want plenty of soil for them to be in. They can get a decent size on them, and we're gonna get them, once they come up, we're gonna fertilize them pretty heavy. I want to put a nice healthy plant out. The perennials typically, or the perennial that I'm doing, I don't know, is the sweetest, I don't think it's necessarily perennial. It may be. I know I've had it grow in my yard and stay for a couple years. It usually the way it works is the perennial, the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. The yarrow, because we get such hot summers, I have seen it bloom in the first year, but by the second year it goes crazy. And the goal here is to get it to reseed and to spread. That's what I want it to do. And if it's invasive, and it's not invasive here, because it gets just cold enough to kind of keep it back. But if it does become invasive, then it's easily taken care of in this area. So what you don't want to do is get something that's like really hardy and really invasive and then put it in your area, and then you're like fighting it forever and you can't get it out. So just keep that in mind as you do this. Once I get all these seeded, I'm going to show you how I plan to meet the requirements for this, and another thing I'm going to do for these seeds to keep them watered. I feel nice today, and I'm going to bless y'all again and not have y'all watch my face anymore, so for a little bit, so you get a little break from that, which, you know, is very thankful. And now onto the subject of light. So needing light. Now that means that, for instance, if this seed does not get any kind of light when it is sowed, it will not grow. So it's really important to kind of keep that in mind as you're buying seeds, flower seeds, and you're looking at them, because you don't have these problems with vegetables at all. Now these are the strawflower seeds, and I'm just going to do a Hail Mary here, because I just have not had any luck. So I'm going to try and get, well, I don't know. I was going to put them all in these 6-packs, but there's so many going in. I think I might actually space it out and do another sowing another day. I mean, you can see I'm putting a fair amount in, and we've got a lot left. So I think I'm going to be good, add them back in, and save them. And I'll probably do another round next week. I mean, look. Right now, the soil's for like, I can't get any more soil out. I barely got this out, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. Now this is a tall straw flower, and I don't know, I've always liked them. I've seen them a bunch, and they're very eye-catching, and I think they would be, I like to cut flowers for my wife. She's silly. She doesn't, like, I do it every year, but she doesn't expect it. Like, she's like, oh, well, she always acts surprised, and she is surprised. I'm like, how are you surprised? Like, this is what I do, but whatever. So I'm going to continue to do that, and I think, and they just last a long time, so I want to use them. So as far as needing light and not needing light, you just do your research and figure it out. And so for instance, and one reason why we did the 6-packs too, the only one that needs light is the calendula, or does not need light, excuse me, is a calendula. So I need to try and get some of this perlite out, and it's got snow and everything else in it, so that's a nightmare. But I only want to cover up these seeds, and even still I don't want to do it very heavy. So we're just going to put this light amount on, and I mean, there may be some light that comes in, but it'll be all right. And so we want to leave the rest uncovered completely. All right, so you can see everything that needs light is everything but this. So now what I want to do is I just want to lightly make sure it has contact with the soil. But we are about to ensure that, and you can see I still get seeds stuck to my finger. So you just want to be very careful, because remember, they need light. And I'm not a master flower grower by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, and what I need to be doing is see that? When I'm done, I need to wipe off my finger just to make sure, so that I don't contaminate them, because, you know, I will get confused for sure and be like, cool, I got it to grow, and not even have a clue what it is. So you definitely want to make sure you're cleaning off your fingers. And then we'll do double check, nothing. And what we'll do next is we're going to ensure that they get watered without us having to water them at all. So that's really the key to making sure, you know, you have to have the seed watered in order to produce. You have to get that seed coating to crack. And a lot of times, like with nasturtiums and stuff like that, people will take them and like nick them. And you can do that, but really it just comes down to water. That's all we need. But you saw that these seeds are so small, and we have a lot more that we have to plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to take like a 50 cell tray or something and just go through and do the rest, simply because I sold all of my 6 packs last year, and I don't really want to buy any more if I don't have to, so I need to use what I have. So I'm going to start like a really big tray of the rest of these once these germinate and I say, hey, this worked. The part that's going to kind of suck, we want to make sure they get wet, and we want to make sure that we don't move the seed So what I'm going to do, and we want to make sure that one of them stays cold. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use what God has given me this year. And we're going to take this yarrow, pull it out of here, take this one out of here, and we're going to cover them all with snow. So this will help ensure that these stay cool. And actually tonight it's going to be 23 degrees, which is kind of cold for these seeds. I don't know if it really matters, but what it'll do is it'll help insulate the surface, and 32 degrees is what it's going to be. So it'll help insulate it today, and as it gets warm, it'll melt and keep it cold. And we're going to do the same for these seeds. Bro, I got to get some gloves or something. This is miserable on my hands. Okay, so one issue is all of these, except for this one, need light to germinate, right? So these need light to germinate. This is going to be a little bit more of an issue because they're actually going to sit out, but that's going to melt in a day. When you pile it up, it'll probably take a little bit, but it will absolutely melt. These I'm not overly concerned about, because what we're going to do is we're going to take them and we're going to put them in the greenhouse. Go. So they're going to be in here. I'd be honest, I would be surprised if that didn't melt by the end of the day. Cloudy right now, but I think also what I might do, see, here's the issue. I don't have a snow shovel. I can't buy a snow shovel around here. I don't want to buy a snow shovel, because if I buy a snow shovel, I'm going to get more snow, so I refuse. But what I may end up doing too is just going around, and some of these piles around the garden beds that I had to take off of the covers, I may actually get some of the snow and put down in here. I'll just lay it in between the rows, especially for the broccoli, and probably right in this gap here and that gap there, and let it just go down, because the issue is now everything is frozen and we don't have a lot of water. So until this snow goes away, which should be a couple days, it just helps get a little bit more water in there, and I don't have to hand water or anything like that. And it'll slow release, get in, and it'll also help keep the top of the soil moist. So we're looking to do that too. I'll probably do that actually. You know what, I'm gonna do it right now, see how it looks. All right, so we just got a little bit of snow in there, and it should melt, shouldn't take long to melt, and it'll help keep everything cool when the sun comes out, which is what we kind of want. And then water, and then actually tonight when it gets cold again, whatever melts will help the roots insulate from the cold if it gets too cold in here, and then whatever is on top will actually insulate the soil as well. Tomorrow we're supposed to get up in like maybe high 40s, high 50s, or low 50s, and it'll be 80 degrees in there. That stuff will melt right away. So we know that those plants are cold hardy, not an issue. And the seeds, they're already melting. So we shut it back up. If the sun would come back out, which it will, those look like snow clouds. If they come back out, then we'll have it. It'll melt, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But as far as these perennial seeds go, these yarrow seeds, we are going to let them sit here. They need to be out here in the cold, so we're going through the next week. Once this melts, then we're going to take this and we're going to move them. This is my corner that I use, so I need to prepare this. This is my corner. So I'll put it here, and why it's my corner is because it gets a little bit of sunlight. So it'll warm it up, it'll get light, but then when it gets warm in the middle of next week, we're gonna put them right back over here so that they stay right there and stay cool. And then after that, we should have about a week left of keeping them cool, and then we can put them back out. Obviously, I'm gonna run out of snow, not a big deal. I'm just gonna let it go. We'll be able to keep them cool. Worst case scenario, we can always put them in our shed. An unheated garage is pretty good. It usually stays pretty cool, especially something that's not attached to your house. So we can do that as well. And I mean, really what it comes down to is if you have a seed right now that needs to be cold stratification, you want to do it naturally like I do, where I don't put them inside at all, then you're running out of time. Okay, so at this point, let's say you don't have a greenhouse to put it in and you don't have low tunnels to put it in. What would you do once these seeds were finished the cold stratification period, which is typically about 2 to 3 weeks? You could bring them inside at that point. So you can put them under your seed shelf, under your lights, and let them grow like normal. They just need to break that dormancy, and that's what we're doing. We're breaking that, we're forcing it to break. And just think about it like this. Naturally, if the seed were to go, the plant were to grow, drop its seed, and it sat on the soil, then that would naturally do it. And that's all we're doing is mimicking that. Now for wildflowers and stuff like that, if they're not perennial, they're just annuals, it doesn't make a hill of beans. They don't need to be cold. They just like to be cold because that's just a natural process for them. And if you ask me personally, I think you probably do get a much stronger seedling out of having them chilled to some extent. But again, it doesn't matter. You typically do it like if you buy a bag of wildflower seeds, you just scatter them and then you lightly walk on them and water them and they'll grow, but they need light. You know, a lot of these flowers need light. So it's a totally different world, and it's a world that I'm trying to crack, and we're going to crack it one piece at a time. And we'll probably do a couple episodes on the Backyard Gardens podcast about that. And I may do one here, depending on people like flowers and stuff like that. It's typically not my gig to talk about, but I have done some work over the years to get better at it and to really help myself get better.
Goodbye.